My sister told me I was dead to her when I refused to babysit. 8 years later, she showed up at my door with all 5 kids asking me to take them permanently. My sister Jolene always had opinions about how I lived my life. When I went to college, she said I was wasting time on a degree I'd never use. When I got my first job in accounting, she said I was becoming one of those cold career women. When I bought my first apartment at 26, she asked what the point was since I'd just moved when I got married. When I told her I wasn't sure I wanted kids, she said that was the most selfish thing she'd ever heard. Jolene had her first baby at 19. By 25, she had 3. By 30, she had 5 kids with 3 different fathers, none of whom stuck around. She wore her motherhood like a badge of honor. She said raising children was the most important job in the world. She said women who chose careers over families were missing the point of life. She said I'd regret my choices when I was old and alone. I told her I was happy with my life. She said I just didn't know any better. When I turned 30, Jolene and I had our final argument. She'd asked me to babysit her kids for a weekend so she could go on a trip with her newest boyfriend. I said no. I had a work deadline. She lost it completely. She said I cared more about spreadsheets than my own nieces and nephews. She said I was proving her point about career women being heartless. She said our mother would be ashamed of me if she was still alive. I told her our mother would be ashamed of someone who kept having children she couldn't afford with men who wouldn't stay. That was the end. She told me I was dead to her. She blocked my number, blocked my email, and told the rest of our family that I'd said horrible things about her kids. Some relatives believed her, some didn't. I stopped trying to explain my side. I just moved on with my life. 8 years passed. I got promoted 3 times. I made senior accountant, then manager, then director at my firm. I bought a house in a quiet neighborhood. I traveled to 12 countries. I dated when I wanted and stayed single when I preferred. I built a life that was full and complete on my own terms. I heard about Jolene occasionally through our cousin Wanda. The updates were never good. Boyfriend after boyfriend, job after job, eviction after eviction. The kids were struggling in school. The oldest had gotten into trouble with the law at 15. Jolene was always asking relatives for money. She never asked me because I didn't exist to her anymore. I felt bad for those kids. They didn't choose their mother, but I also knew I couldn't save them. Jolene had made it clear she didn't want my help or my presence in their lives. Then 3 weeks ago, Jolene showed up at my house. I hadn't seen her in 8 years. She looked 10 years older than she was. Worn down, exhausted, desperate. She had all 5 kids with her. They stood on my porch like refugees. The youngest was 7 now. The oldest was 17. They barely looked at me. They didn't know me at all. Jolene said she needed help. She said she was losing her apartment. She said she couldn't find work. She said the kids' fathers were all useless. She said she had nowhere else to turn. Then she said she wanted me to take the kids. Not temporarily, permanently. She said she couldn't do it anymore. She said the stress was killing her. She said she needed time to get back on her feet. She said it might take a year or 2, maybe more. She said I had a big house with extra rooms. She said I had money and stability. She said the kids deserved better than what she could give them. She said I owed it to the family. I asked her what happened to me being dead to her. She said that was a long time ago. She said people change. She said she was willing to forgive me for what I said if I was willing to help now. Forgive me. Like I was the one who needed forgiveness. I asked her if she remembered what she said about me. The cold career woman. The selfish one. The one who didn't understand the point of life because I didn't have children. I asked her if she remembered telling me our mother would be ashamed. She said she was upset back then. She said she didn't mean it. She said I was holding on to grudges instead of focusing on what mattered. What mattered, apparently, was me taking responsibility for 5 children I hadn't seen in 8 years while she disappeared to figure out her life. I told her I needed time to think. I shouldn't have said that. I should have said no immediately. But I was so stunned by her audacity that I defaulted to stalling. She took it as an opening. For the next week, she called me constantly. She sent long texts about how hard her life was. She sent messages about each kid, their ages, their needs, their personalities. Last Saturday, I drove to the motel where Jolene was staying with the kids. I knocked on the door. She answered looking hopeful. She probably thought I was bringing good news. Hashtag I wasn't bringing good news. I told her I couldn't take the kids. The words came out flat and final. Her face changed in seconds. The hope drained away. Then something harder moved in. She started yelling that I was abandoning family just like I always did. She said our mother would be disgusted with my selfishness. The younger kids appeared behind the door. 3 small faces peering around the frame. The 7-year-old looked confused. The 10-year-old looked scared. The 13-year-old just stared at me like I was a stranger. Jolene kept going. She said I was her last option. She grabbed my arm and begged me to at least think about taking 1 or 2 of the kids, maybe the younger ones who were easier. I pulled away and walked toward my car. She followed me yelling that I'd regret this when she ended up homeless with 5 children on the street. I got in my car and locked the doors. She stood in the parking lot shouting while I backed out. The kids were still in the doorway watching. I called my cousin Gabriella before I even got home. She said Jolene had been telling relatives for weeks that I agreed to take the kids. She'd been posting on social media about her sister stepping up. Half our cousins thought the arrangement was already settled. The manipulation was so calculated it made me angry. Jolene had been building a trap. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing those kids in the doorway. Kellen, the 7-year-old, so small and scared looking. I kept reminding myself that Jolene made her own decisions about having 5 kids with 3 different fathers. But guilt still ate at me. I had resources. They had nothing. Around 3 in the morning, I admitted something to myself. I felt guilty, but I still wasn't going to do it. The next morning, my phone started buzzing before 7. Photos of the kids looking sad. Messages about how cold the motel room got at night. By 9, I'd received 15 messages. I blocked her number. 5 minutes later, she called from one of the kids' phones. I turned off my phone completely. Gabriella warned me that Jolene was posting on social media about her heartless sister who had a big house, but wouldn't help family in crisis. Family members were commenting with shocked reactions. I took a personal day and spent it at researching. I discovered I had zero legal requirement to take Jolene's children. Then I researched resources for families in her situation, emergency housing assistance, job training programs, temporary family services. There were options. Jolene had choices beyond dumping her kids on me. I mailed her information about 3 different assistance programs. I didn't expect a thank you. Saturday afternoon, someone knocked on my door. Randolph stood on my porch alone. He said his mom sent him to guilt trip me, but he wasn't going to do it. His honesty caught me completely off guard. He asked if I could just give them money for first month's rent somewhere. I made him a sandwich while he sat at my kitchen table. He ate like he was starving. He told me he'd been basically co-parenting his siblings since he was 12. He said his mom wasn't a bad person, but she made terrible choices with men and money. I asked what he wanted for himself. He said he just wanted to graduate high school. The way he said it made my heart hurt. He was 17 and already exhausted by life. On the drive back to the motel, he mentioned casually that his mom's eviction wasn't actually happening for another 3 weeks. The timeline she'd given me was a lie. I met with a family lawyer named Conrad Tyler. He explained that giving Jolene money directly could create expectations. If I wanted to assist, I should pay a landlord directly and keep receipts. He also mentioned that if Jolene's situation was as bad as I described, someone should probably call Child Protective Services. I felt sick immediately. 2 days later, Gabriella texted that a social worker showed up at the motel. Someone reported the living conditions. The kids were interviewed. I hadn't called anyone. Someone else must have seen something. Jolene was telling everyone I called CPS to steal her children. I deleted her raging voicemail without responding. A social worker named Michaela called me. She said Jolene had listed me as a family resource. The children weren't in immediate danger, but the family needed a stable housing plan within 30 days. She asked if I was willing to provide temporary housing. I said no. I explained I could help financially with specific costs, but I couldn't take 5 children into my home. I told her I'd pay for security deposit and first month's rent if Jolene found an apartment and met certain conditions, completing a financial literacy class and maintaining employment for 60 days. Michaela said that sounded reasonable. The meeting at social services was tense. Jolene cried and said nobody would help her. She said I'd turned the whole family against her. Michaela walked through available resources, emergency housing vouchers, job placement services, parenting support programs. Jolene kept shaking her head saying none of that would work fast enough. Michaela's voice got firmer. She said Jolene needed to choose between accepting the support services or having the children placed in temporary foster care while she stabilized. Jolene asked if Michaela was threatening to take her kids. Michaela said no. She was explaining realistic options. Jolene looked at me expecting me to jump in and offer to take everyone. I didn't say anything. The meeting ended with Jolene agreeing to work with social services. She signed papers but refused to speak to me directly. Over the next 2 weeks, Jolene went through the motions. She attended the financial class. She met with job counselors. And she posted passive-aggressive updates about fake family who only helped with conditions attached. I stopped checking social media completely. Michaela called to say Jolene found an apartment and completed the first class. I wrote a check directly to the landlord for the security deposit and first month's rent, including a note stating this was one-time assistance. Gabriella texted that Jolene moved the kids in over the weekend. She didn't thank me. A month later, Randolph texted asking to meet for coffee. He told me the apartment was small but clean. His mom got a job stocking shelves at night. The younger kids were adjusting. He thanked me for helping even though his mom wouldn't. Then he asked if it was okay if he stayed in touch sometimes. I told him yes. I realized I could have a relationship with my nieces and nephews that didn't require rescuing them or enabling their mother. I could be an aunt on my own terms. Over the next few months, I met with Randolph every few weeks. Sometimes he brought the younger kids. They were shy at first, but gradually warmed up. Kellen showed me drawings. Freya told me about her teacher. 4 months after the apartment move, Jolene texted that her car broke down and she needed $800 for repairs. I typed back that I was glad the apartment was working out, but I couldn't provide more money. A wall of text came through calling me selfish and heartless. I blocked the number without responding. No guilt this time, just a clean break. Randolph texted me the date of his high school graduation. I bought a card and tucked $500 inside with a note about community college classes. Afterward, in the parking lot, he brought all his siblings to meet me properly. I handed him the card and told him I was proud of how he took care of his family. His eyes went wide at the money. He thanked me 3 times. 6 months had passed since Jolene showed up demanding I take her children. I realized I felt peaceful about my choice. I supported the kids in a way I could maintain instead of enabling Jolene's chaos or sacrificing everything I built. My relationship with Jolene stayed distant, but I had something real with my nieces and nephews now. I learned that helping on my own terms worked better than either cutting everyone off or giving up everything.